Welcome to today's special episode of the Cinephile Mind. Today's guest, we are lucky to feature a filmmaker, playwright whose work lives at the intersection of big ideas and deeply human emotion. Colby Day is a writer behind In the Blink of an Eye, the award-winning film that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, took home the Alfred P. Sloan Award. He's also written for projects spanning sci-fi epics to intimate character studies, including Spaceman for Netflix, which features Adam Sandler and Carey Mulligan, and served as a writer and story editor on For All Mankind for Apple TV Plus. His work blends humor with emotional depth, and as he puts it, the stranger the idea, the more he's drawn to it. So, Colby, welcome. We're excited to chat with you today.
I'm excited to get to talk to you guys. This is a very nice bio. Come with me to everything I do.
Awesome. Yeah, we look forward to following you after this.
Great.
I want to start with In the Blink of an Eye, given obviously that's the kind of the most recent piece of work.
Yeah.
As we were visiting this and kind of diving into it, it seems to have a bit of an interesting history. It's the screenplay was out there on the blacklist for nearly a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm curious, when you have something like that that's just out there for so long, does reflecting on your work, do you start to have mixed feelings about it as time passes, or you feel like confident about it? I'm curious, like, what are the emotions that you're going
What's the
through as
life
it's been so
cycle of a
time? Yeah.
project? I think I have the opposite thing with work. I think I'm really excited when I start, and then I get into the weeds and get about 2/3 of the way through, and then get to feel like, why am I doing this? I hate this. I'll never figure it out. And then that sort of persists as a low burn anxiety until a couple of years after the fact.
Yep.
um, Basically all the way through like the edit of something. And then yeah, there's something about it being a script that I finished and sort of like kept having meetings about, but never found the right partner for so long, that does sort of, I don't know, gave me enough space to zoom out a little bit and get to look at it and be I don't know, proud of the accomplishment as a writer, and feel like, oh, it is. I would go and revisit it before any big meetings with people and be like, oh, I did a good job 5 years ago. I did a good job 6 years ago. So I think the perspective was helpful, honestly, for something that is also so much about time.
Yeah.
A lot has happened to me since I started it. So it's been an interesting script to live with for so long.
10 years is a long time to sit with something. You change as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing it before my wife and I, who are now married and having a baby, met. Like,
Congratulations.
Wow. Yeah.
thank you. So it's a very weird one to look back and be like, oh, I wrote this in my living room by myself back before my whole life, exists as it exists
Wow.
now. So it's really crazy.
That's awesome. When I think about this script, like there's obviously a lot of multi-generational movies out there, like The Fountain and Cloud Atlas. And when I think about those movies, they're so long.
Yeah.
Almost bloated, I would say. And this movie is relatively short compared to them.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you had any challenges like developing these multiple story arcs or any of these characters given a time constraint here?
When I first wrote the script, it was not exactly, but very close to 90 pages. And the goal was sort of, can you do it in an hour and a half? The idea first started as potentially a play. And so, having been a playwright for a long time, I am very much obsessed with, like, can we do this whole thing without having to have an intermission? I was a theater manager. I was a house manager at Playwrights Horizons, and I would watch as 25% of the audience left at intermission for shows. And I was like, oh, we have to write stuff that's short enough where we don't have intermissions.
Yeah.
So that was the initial conceit, was, could I do it in 90 minutes? And then the draft clocked in at about that and felt satisfying. And then when Searchlight got on board to do the movie, they, I think, were very much like, what else could it expand? Could there be more? And Andrew and I talked through some of that stuff and tried some of that stuff, and just sort of both were like, Yeah, I think it should be what it is. Like it's supposed to be concise and get to the point and not overstay its welcome. Yeah, I think we could make shorter movies mostly.
That's so. I feel like a decade ago I was saying like, I'm so excited, like 3 hour movies are back. And now I'm like, I'm
The
ready for
monkey's
more
paw.
90 minutes movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've cursed us all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
now
like,
every movie release is like at least 2.5 hours long, and it's
Mhm.
it's
it might have something to do with like streaming services. Like you get to be engaged with the app for a little longer,
Just
but
more watch time.
more watch time, more hours. But you don't always need those hours.
No, you don't. And I think to do a story that is about an idea and about like the accumulation of an idea and isn't so much about plot, the idea of spending more time on that just didn't feel like it made sense. Like the thing that carries you through a really long movie is like wanting to see what
yeah.
happens next and the story. And I just don't think that this was about that, like intentionally. And so anytime we gave a scene or more space or a story more space, it just sort of felt fatty and like, yeah, we could just not see this and we'll understand what we're talking about still.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating insight into kind of like the history of that. I'd like to talk about Spaceman now.
Yeah.
So, I will tell you, personally, I was moved by this story. I
Yeah.
think as someone who, I struggle with like emotional expression and myself, and it's played a part in my own close relationships with
Mm-hmm.
people in my life. So I found myself really relating to the character of Jakob in this
Yeah.
film. Um, and I'm curious. I know it's adapted from a book. And what was it about this book that inspired you to want to adapt a film and kind of take that on?
Yeah, at the first, that's really nice. Thank you. I loved the book. Like, I really, that's the answer. Like, I think you so often, especially in sort of like Hollywood land, are getting sent things that kind of like have an interesting idea, but don't work fully, or an interesting concept that maybe if you changed everything, that could be a movie. And so it's really rare that you get sent a piece of material that's just like a beautiful piece
Hmm.
of work on its own. And I read the book and was really moved in the same way you were, Spencer, and just sort of felt like, oh, if we could transmit this emotional experience to the screen, that would be a success. Like that would
Yeah.
really be meaningful. So it started there, and I was really sort of just moved by the writing and Yaroslav's work as an author. It's really beautiful, and I just wanted to kind of like do half as good a job in bringing it to screen, and felt like that would be okay. So yeah, I mean, it just was a great book. That's the real
Yeah.
answer.
Hunter, I know you have a quick question. I'm just going to jump in real quick. Like, I'm just like curious when you're adapting something like this. Obviously, like Adam Sandler is playing the main character, and you have prolific actors, Carey
Yeah.
Mulligan. Are you like, do you have someone in mind as you're writing this, or are you more like leaving that up to more of the casting people? Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's something about coming out of theater in particular where I'm really used to not knowing who we'll have, and really used to
hmm,
trying to not have a vision for the character, honestly, and then to be impressed by what comes into the room in an audition or in the casting. So I really had no concept of who our characters would be for Spaceman, like who could embody that. I think it's a really challenge. I mean, every role in the film is really
yeah,
challenging, and I think that's exciting as an actor, but it does sort of make it hard to anticipate who can pull this off. And then once you have actors, I do love to kind of go back through and look at the script with them in mind and think about like, oh, now that I know it's Adam, what can he do? What's he capable of? What haven't I seen him do that I think he can do? That's like the fun. That's sort of the fun stuff to me is once I know tweaking, but it's really hard for me to envision or imagine up top because you just you're not going to get them.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that with your background. Just like in the theater, there is no guy. There are multiple choices. You have understudies, people who need to take different shifts for each performance. So when you're writing something, you're really not. You're not like, there's a dude.
You're just sort of creating the text, and I think the craziest part of theater is it in theory should be able to be done by actors all over, right? And so it just sort of gives you a different mindset for like, I kind of just need to build something that will work no matter who it is, and then we can transform it hopefully around the performer.
Yeah. And that's always a great thing about theater is that sometimes different actors get to do wonderful different interpretations of that character.
Yeah, totally.
There's this resurgence right now. Obviously, I'll talk about a 3-hour movie. Project Hail Mary just dropped.
Yes.
And these Andy Weir books are kind of like ushering forward this era of like hard sci-fi back into the theaters where we're talking about math. We're talking about all the science behind stuff in exhausting detail.
Fuel usage. Big plot point in Hail Mary.
How much fuel do we have left? Why did he bring so much fuel? He doesn't know what relativity is, stuff like that. But you're operating in a kind of a more like classical sci-fi space, like this soft genre where it doesn't seem like you feel like you're exhausting the viewer with all these details. And I'm wondering if you do that specifically because you're looking for more like an emotional message from your movies instead of like these hard plots based on like data points where we got to get to point A to point B.
Yeah, I really like hard sci-fi as a reader. Like I read like Adrian Tchaikovsky's Children of Time series, which are like the most dense 700-page like books about tweaking evolution in genomes and stuff. And every time I was looking at it, my wife was like, "What are you reading? This is so boring." But I think there's hard science fiction sort of underneath the hood in the blink of an eye, and anytime you start to talk about it or explain it, it just is like not interesting. It's not interesting emotionally to talk about like what Roscoe the computer really is. I have like a theory as to what that is, but anytime we dissected it, it was like, this is not useful for our story at all. So yeah, I think it's about, with any genre stuff, it's just sort of like servicing the emotion of the story and what do we need to understand emotionally. And usually that's not the rules. I think like movies have there is a trend in movies of like, we need to explain things. And I think that anytime you're explaining, you're kind of like pulling the audience out of feeling something. And so it's just sort of like, even in talking about stuff in the blink of an eye, we had story problems, and anytime we were like, how do we explain this? It was always like, is there an emotional way to explain this rather than a technical way to explain this? That was sort of the thing we kept talking about in the future storyline, is like, it's not that interesting to talk about like how this is going to work. It's more interesting to talk about it in like a felt human sense. So I love all that stuff, but it's not, it tends to be the stuff that I think about a lot and then don't ever use in the script.
Yeah, it's nice to have something to chew on, I think.
Yes, and I think if you explain everything, then we don't get to leave and be like, how do you think they were doing that? What do you think that was about?
Yeah, exactly.
You seem to, love the kind of the surreal and the strange as well, which I always love to see kind of portrayed on film. I'm curious, like, what has about things that have inspired you creatively, like maybe early on in your career or life, really. Is there like a specific piece of art, film, book that, you can point to as being like the origin of your creative inspiration that kind of like set you down this path?
There are a few touchstones that, as I triangulate them, it sort of sounds like an insane person's taste in movies. But I was born in 1988, and I think one of the very first movies I like remember seeing is Batman Returns, which is not appropriate for someone who was born 2 or 3 years before that movie came out. But it is like deep in my subconscious at this point as like a film and what movies are, you know, like what movies can be, which is like so big and so built out and so strange. Dick Tracy, also a very pivotal like early 90s film that just sort of like locked into my brain as like, oh, you can do anything on screen and it can look like whatever you want it to look like. And then I recently revisited, and this is also, it's interesting that there's a Burton theme in here, Mars Attacks recently, and was like, oh, kind of like my whole sense of humor is this stupid movie. Like I'm realizing there's kind of a like big crazy idea, big crazy world thing that's very interesting to me, that has sort of, even in the more sensitive stuff I've written, like tends to be true. You know, Spaceman is a film about like loss and loneliness and disconnection, but like there is a giant alien that talks to him and eats snacks. Like there's a weird thing going on no matter what, even if we're going to talk about, you know, some heavy stuff.
I love that you mentioned Batman Returns. That you and I are about the same age. So, and that VHS was worn out at my house in the early 90s.
It's just a crazy movie.
It is. It's insane.
It.
Which you don't even really fully appreciate as a child watching that, but
no,
looking back, revisiting it now.
It's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a live action cartoon, and I think a lot of what I really admire is sort of that ability to kind of like take a cartoon or an opera or the feeling of a musical and like bring that to life. Like, I'll bring us to a world is sort of like the whole thing I want from a movie, even if it's going to be a movie that's, you know, about something deeper. Like, I still want to be transported. I grew up in the suburbs and went to the movies every weekend, and that was to go see a big crazy experience, not to go see like an art house piece of film. And I love those movies, but it's just not where my brain, where my deep lizard brain takes me often.
It's like we're missing that a lot now. I still do it now when I go to the theater, where I'm just like, we need this stuff now more than ever. Like just sitting in the dark by yourself, and you're just
Take me somewhere wild.
I'm gone. Yeah. I'm somewhere new for just 2 hours.
Yes.
Is there a dream sci-fi work out there, given like you seem to be kind of pulled towards that you would love to adapt?
I, for a long time, was trying to get the rights to this book Jonathan Lethem wrote called As She Climbed Across the Table. So if anyone's listening and has the rights to it, shoot me a message. But it's about a woman who is investigating an anomalous black hole, and she realizes that the black hole is communicating with her and falls in love with the black hole. And it's just super trippy. It's super weird. It does some crazy stuff. It goes into the black hole for a while. But it also is about like, you know, relationships and feeling heard and seen. And it's like a beautiful, thoughtful story that is also like about the kind of craziest idea you could put in a book and hardest thing you could put on screen. So that's always the stuff that is interesting to me. And that was what was interesting about Spaceman also, was it just was really challenging. Like just how do we pull this off is always something that gets me excited too.
Well, I just threw that into my Amazon cart, so
it's a cool book. Yeah, it's cool. Report back. I love it.
I was going to ask if there was something that you had like read recently that you would recommend, and I have not even heard of that. So that's like, I loved it. That's a great recommendation.
I mean, not one of his most well-known books, but it's really interesting, and it is sort of that convergence of like sort of surrealist version of hard sci-fi. I don't know that the science all works, but it kind of doesn't matter when it's about someone and a black hole becoming friends.
When you have something like that, like in your mind, is like a dream to like potentially adapt, but you obviously it's something you need to acquire rights for.
Mm-hmm.
Do you start like working on a outline for what that would look like, or are you like, I'm not even going to spend time on this until I have the rights?
I discovered the book because I had a meeting long ago, and now I don't remember who had the rights, but I had a meeting with someone who did have the rights to the book at the time. And so I did a tiny bit of work on it, and then it just sort of seemed like they had another version they wanted to try, and this is now like a decade ago, so it's just a thing that's on my little Google spreadsheet of like every year or two I should just sort of check in and see what's going on. But I kind of can't help but think about how would I try to do this. It's sort of like the writer director curse of like, as I engage with almost anything, I am thinking about like, what would that look like? How could you do that? What would happen on screen? So it doesn't turn off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, we're about at the 30-minute mark, so I really want to give you a chance, Colby, to talk about your next project, if you are willing.
Yeah, I am heading off to go direct. So I now have these two movies I wrote that were produced and had other very accomplished directors go do them. And now it's my turn to mess it all up myself. So we're hard at work on this movie I wrote called The Comedy Hour. And one of my first jobs in entertainment was I was an intern at The Daily Show long ago, and back in like John 1.0 days. And right after that, worked at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon really briefly. And I love that format, but it does sort of feel like an aging format that may or may not need to be on TV anymore. And so I've written a film about a guy doing one of those shows during a world that looks a lot like ours, maybe a tiny bit worse, but every day we get closer to what the movie's depiction is.
It's going to catch up.
We're going to catch up and circle back around. So he's doing a show alone and kind of unraveling, and his network sends him a robot to be his co-host, and everyone prefers the robot to him. So
that's the most like Tim Heidecker thing I can think of.
We're doing it with Tim, of course, and it's very much sort of a dark showbiz, network or the player, but absolutely like in the stupidest, silliest way possible.
That's great. I don't know if you watch his On Cinema project.
I mean, when I met with Tim, he was like, "This fits my grander project."
That just makes me think of On Cinema, and his character is so just evil and dark in On Cinema at the cinema.
What I love about Tim is he is one of the funniest, silliest guys out there, and can be angry in a way that's like really fun, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
And he also clearly is really, really a sweetie and cares a lot about the world and what's going on. And so it's a really interesting mix to have in a guy and in a character and in an actor. It's very exciting and very much Tim.
Yeah. Very much.
When can we expect to get to see this?
That's a great question. As I mentioned, I'm about to go have a baby, so not in the next month or two. But we are sort of in prep to go hopefully this fall, and then it's like any movie, kind of what's the release and when are the festivals, but hopefully next year is the tentative, something like that. Don't hold me to it.
Well, that's exciting. We're thrilled, looking forward to it. We'll definitely be tuning in. We're big fans of Tim Heidecker, obviously, too. So that's exciting to see.
He's the best.
Yeah, hopefully we would love to loop back around with you when that comes out. So
I'd love it. Yeah, anytime.
We're very excited about that project, and we're excited that you're getting to put your hat in the ring in the director chair. So
yes, I'm the boss now.
You're the boss.
Yep. You write and direct. That's like the ultimate control, right?
This is auteur cinema. Yeah.
Yes. Here we are, and I am very much there's no such thing as auteur cinema, but when it's me, I think so.
Yeah. Only when I do it.
There's only one auteur out there.
Awesome. Well, Colby, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Again, thanks so
Me
much
too,
for
guys.
taking some time
Thank
to
you.
chat with us. It was really interesting to hear kind of your perspective on things. We really look forward to the upcoming project.
Thank you.
And best of luck and congratulations on the upcoming baby as well.
Yeah.
Thanks. I have the most important project going on right now, and then some movies after that.
No doubt. Take care. Hope to chat with you again down the road.
Love it.